Welcome to another Jabba's Palace roll call. Today's character, Max Rebo. Max Rebo was an Ortolan musician and leader of the Max Rebo band, which had been contracted to play in Jabba's palace. As with many characters from Jabba's palace, most of what we know of Max Rebo's backstory comes from the 1995 anthology Tales from Jabba's Palace. The story, And the Band Played On, The Band's Tale, by John Gregory Betancourt, starts with the band's arrival in Mos Eisley. They were originally a quartet called Evar Orbis and his Galactic Jizzwailers, because, they played jizz music. The modal nodes, otherwise known as the Mos Eisley Cantina Band, didn't take kindly to the new band's arrival and tried to wipe them out. Evar, the band leader, was killed in a firefight, but the rest of the band managed to escape, and under Max's leadership, they were contracted to play at Jabba's palace. In the story, Max is portrayed as a glutton who thinks about almost nothing but food. So, to the other band members' dismay, he agreed to play for all the food they could eat, and no actual pay. While the band did play on Jabba's sail barge on its final ill-fated voyage, they managed to escape it before it exploded. Max eventually joined up with the rebellion, using his musical stylings to entertain the rebel troops, before retiring and opening a chain of restaurants called Max's Flant House. However, George Lucas made some changes to Return of the Jedi with his special edition of the film released in 1997. Perhaps the most infamous change was to the Max Rebo Band's musical number in Jabba's palace. Not only was the song itself changed, but the number of band members more than doubled. Max Rebo himself takes a less central role in the film as well. These changes really deserve to be looked at in more detail at another time. But for now, I'll just say that the closest thing we've gotten to a backstory that incorporates the new members in the band was in a 2003 article in Star Wars Insider magazine. It incorporated the story from Tales from Jabba's Palace while also adding details about the new members. One new detail they included was that Max Rebo was a stage name, and his true name was Cerulean Fantele, presumably a sort of play on words based on the phrase cerulean elephant. Cerulean just means blue. However, during pre-production of Return of the Jedi, Max was originally referred to as Monster Number 21, or Red Ball Jet. Red Ball Jets were a kind of sneaker popular in the 1950s, but I'm not sure what the reason for using that name was. But I am convinced that the names Red Ball and Rebo are connected to each other. Red Ball, Rebo. Interestingly, this name was later recycled as the name of his organ. The original design for Max Rebo was largely based on this maquette sculpted by Phil Tippett. Notice the red balls here. Now, if you look closely at this statue and at this concept artwork, you may notice something rather shocking. Max doesn't appear to have any arms, and is in fact playing his instrument with his feet. Pablo Hidalgo did a great job of breaking this mystery down in a post on StarWars.com rather cheekily titled, Getting to the Bottom of Max Rebo. He makes a pretty convincing case that not only was Max Rebo not originally intended to have arms, the version in the film may even have been intended to be that way. The actual costume was created using the maquette as a direct reference, and when viewed with no one inside it, the costume clearly looks like these are Max's legs. It's not until the performer got inside that they started to look more like arms. Let's look at that again in slow motion. Even with the performer inside, Max clearly seems to be sitting on top of a pillow, rather than having a full body that would extend inside the piano. You can also see this, to some degree, in the film. Pablo drew this sketch of what an armless Max Rebo might look like standing up, and interestingly, his ears start to look more like flippers. Ultimately, it's difficult to know whether they really intended Max to have this kind of design, or if they changed course sometime during the production of the film, and changed the design from the maquette. But it's an interesting thought experiment that can certainly change how you view the character. Now, of course, we can't overlook the fact that the original Max Rebo action figure, made by Kenner in 1983, did indeed make him into a humanoid elephant. But in his article, Pablo makes the case that this was just an extrapolation on the part of Kenner's designers, that eventually ended up becoming the official look for the character. Speaking of action figures, let's go ahead and take a look at the merchandise that has been released for the character of Max Rebo. I think I have pretty much everything that exists, but there's a fair amount out there, so I'll be skipping some of the more minor things like pins and buttons, as well as t-shirts and the like. I've already mentioned the vintage Kenner figure, which came in the Sice Noodles and the Rebo Band playset. Some people have complained that this set wasn't much fun, and it's true that a set that consists entirely of aliens playing musical instruments doesn't fit the usual mold for action toys. But I loved the aliens' designs as a kid, and thought they were a cool addition to Jabba's palace. And I still do. Here's the original TV commercial for the set.
Rebo's got the beat, and the band plays on. You can relive it all with Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi Collection. Introducing Size Noodles and the Rebo Band. Jabba the Hutt action playset sold separately.
Play it again, Si. Starring Size Noodles, Droopy McCool on clarinet, Max Rebo on organ. Ribbit, Rebo. Dance, Droopy. It's your last solo, Snoodles. Whoa.
New Size Noodles and the Rebo Band. Jabba the Hutt action playset sold separately from Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi Collection.
And here is the European version of the playset, which came in a much smaller box with no window. In 1998, they released revamped versions of these characters, along with figures for the new members of the band. The two Rebos are actually pretty similar, but the new version is somewhat smaller, and also comes in a deeper blue color. The vintage figure has a tendency to fade over time, so that makes the difference more striking. They also managed to paint his diaper this time, which makes it look a little bit better. We haven't had any other true action figure releases for the character in the nearly 20 years since then, but there have been a number of other kinds of figures. There was a Max Rebo in the Galactic Heroes Sail Barge set, and he even came with his Red Ball Jet organ. Pepsi-Cola in Japan released a surprisingly comprehensive line of bottle caps with Star Wars characters on them, including this Max Rebo. Now these were designed to fit on top of a bottle's existing cap because reasons. Also from Japan was this set of Max Rebo Band Kubricks from 2005. They also included Doda Bodanawido for some reason. Bodanawido. Kubricks are expensive, and this limited set is certainly no exception. I was lucky enough to pick it up in Japan at a price that was still somewhat affordable. As you can see, his design is heavily influenced by the Kenner action figures. LEGO released a minifigure of Max Rebo in its Jabba's Sail Barge set from 2013. His organ is built into the rear of the barge, but it could be better in terms of its appearance. The minifigure is quite cute, though, and it's one of the only figures that could easily be modified if you prefer Max's original non-bipedal design. This isn't a figure exactly, but it is a figural eraser. It was released by Butterfly Originals in 1983. Max was the only member of the band to get his own eraser, for whatever that's worth. The Jabba the Hutt throne room action scene from MPC has one of the largest selections of Palace aliens, so of course it came with a teeny tiny little version of the Rebo Band. Here's one of the models that I painted. Almost as small is this Hallmark keepsake ornament from 1999. It came with the other members of the original band, and they are surprisingly well done for their size. Rawcliffe made this pewter figure in 1993. I think it's really quite well done, and they also have the other members of the band, not to mention Jabba and a few other palace characters. And D'Agostini also put out this painted metal figure, along with a magazine about Max Rebo from 2006 or so. Unfortunately, I don't have the magazine for this one. They tend to be a little light in terms of their content, but it would definitely be interesting to read. Most recently, Funko released this pop figure as an online retailer exclusive. I think they kind of missed the boat by not including his organ, but the figure itself is quite well done. There have been a couple of official Max Rebo plushes made over the years. This one was from the Star Wars Buddies line and is indistinguishable from a blue elephant unless you find the Star Wars logo on the tag. A much better version is this one from Underground Toys. Released as a Celebration Anaheim exclusive in 2015, it plays the song Lapty Neck when you press a hidden button. I also have this handmade crocheted version that I got from a seller on Etsy. I like that it includes his organ. If you want to look at some more upscale collectibles, there have been 2 Max Rebo statues released, both by the company Gentle Giant. The first was part of a Jabba's Palace band statue released in 2007. If you ask me, this may be the ultimate Max Rebo collectible. The detail is great, and it's a nice size as well. They also made a very limited edition Christmas version of this that I don't have. It's quite expensive on the secondary market. It actually lights up and plays music, although the tune is "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," which seems like a bit of a missed opportunity, if you ask me. A close runner-up would be this mini-bust that was also released in 2013. Max himself is a bit bigger than in the statue, but the failure to include the entire organ definitely gives the earlier statue the edge in my book. As I said earlier, there's quite a bit of stuff out there, but we do have to draw the line somewhere, so let's round off this list with a few unique vintage items from 1983. This comb and keeper set was released by Adam Joseph Industries. Pretty snazzy, right? I'm not really sure what the story is behind this star, though. This cork board was released by Manton Cork, who did a surprisingly large range of Star Wars cork boards. Mine apparently used to belong to Chad. Chad, if you're watching this, I have your corkboard. And this set of pajamas was released by Wilker Brothers. And unfortunately, this last one is not in my collection, and in fact, I've been looking for these for years. The only reason I have a photo of them at all is that they popped up in an eBay Buy It Now auction that I missed by a matter of seconds. These kinds of things actually aren't particularly valuable, but they are extremely hard to find since few people saved them. So if you happen to have a set, by all means, let me know. Even though Max Rebo had no lines and really didn't do anything that affected the story of the film, he's a very memorable character that has spawned many products in the years since. He's even inspired characters in later movies such as Disney's Captain EO, which came out a couple of years after Return of the Jedi. This was a short 3D film that played at Disney resorts, and I recall thinking it was amazing as a kid. Looking back on it now, without the benefit of the 3D or the other effects that were used in the theater at the time, it barely seems watchable. But in any case, it featured the character of Hooter, who was a blue humanoid elephant in an undershirt and no pants. Like Max, he played the keyboard. But of course, this wasn't just one studio copying another. The film's executive producer was none other than George Lucas. He really seemed to have a thing for blue elephants. Here is a playlist with all of the other Jabba's Palace roll call videos I've made up until now. Now, this is an ongoing series, but they are time-consuming to produce, so it's difficult to release them with any regularity. Thanks for watching!